So record it. I'm going to share my screen. And go ahead and keep your mics muted unless you need to say something, and then you can unmute. Okay, cool. So sharing my screen, let's open up our VS Code. We've got this cities project that we were working on. Oop, I see something in the chat. Ha ha ha. Okay. All right. So we've got this project that we were working on. Let's get it fired up again. So if I go into my server, and let me know if the text on the screen is too small or something like that. So let's load it, server.js. Cool. And then I'll open another terminal tab here so that I can actually run the React project. So we'll say npm start. Oops, I need to be inside my client folder, right? npm start. All right, so cities is just loading up here. There we go, cool. So just a little review of what we did on Friday. We rounded out all of the front end so that we had these different routes. So if I go into my views folder here, we've got a cities list component. We've got an individual city component, and then we've got a new city component and an update city component here. So the question today, as we open up this new city and also this update city here, is there a way that we can kind of simplify this code? So inside the new city, I've got all this stuff, all of these handlers here. So I've got handle change, handle submit. I've got a form all the way down here, and then if we look inside update city here, I've got pretty much the same stuff. So I've got handle change, handle submit, and then all the way down here, I've got my form as well. So if we're thinking to ourselves that there's kind of a lot of code repeated here, so what do we think we might be able to do to make that better? Hutan, what do you think we can do at this point? Hutan, give me a sign that you're alive. I don't know. Okay, that's a fair answer. A little help. Greg, what do you think? Okay. Anyone want to raise their hand, so to speak? Boom. There we go. All right, so this is what we're talking about. In React, we have this concept of reusable code or reusable components. So in other words, maybe I can create a component that's going to encapsulate this logic from both of these guys and just reuse that component in both places, right? So this is where this idea of advanced React comes in, where we're going to break things down a little bit further. And one thing I want to emphasize about this is that it is a little bit more advanced, and you could probably pass the exam without understanding how to do this. However, it is a very important concept and something that I want you guys to at least be exposed to and have some basic level of understanding about. So let's go inside our source folder and let's just create a new folder, components. Now there were a lot of questions, potential black belt requirement. Oh, good, Baxter can hear us. No, this won't really be a potential black belt requirement. It's more just in terms of you guys understanding React on a higher level. A couple of the things that we're going to talk about over the next couple days when we do like login reg and sockets, those will be potential black belt requirements. Okay. All right. However, later on today, what we're going to do with form validation will be a red belt requirement. So I will kind of put that out there. You do have to understand validations. All right, cool. So also the other day, there were some questions about what do we put inside the components folder versus what do we put inside the views folder. So basically think of your views folder as the things that we're going to see inside of our router component. Okay, so if I go back to my app.js here, you guys can see we've got these router components here, and our views are inside those, right? So I've got new city, update city, city, and cities list, versus what we might put in a components folder could be used in multiple views, okay? And that's how we're going to do it today. So inside my components folder, I'm going to create a form.js, okay? And what I want to do is basically grab everything that was in here. Okay, so I'm taking this directly from new city, and then we will potentially make some tweaks to it. Okay, so up top, we're still going to want to use state, right? I don't really need to use effect. I don't need to import use effect here. And if anybody has any questions about that initially, we can talk about it. Otherwise, we'll probably talk about it a little bit more later. I still need my navigate, and I still need Axios, right? Because I know that I'm going to make some API requests here. So I'm going to rename this. We'll call this form. Oops, let me go to the bottom of this too. Okay, cool. And now what I'm kind of thinking to myself is that if I'm going to render out a form, I probably need to take in some initial state for that form. In other words, like what do I want the form state to look like initially when I render this form, right? So rather than me just kind of like creating it and saying, hey, the state of this is going to be all these empty strings, the initial state might be a little bit different depending on if I'm rendering in a city that already exists. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, let's take this in as a prop. I'm just going to say initial state, okay? And that's something that's going to have to be passed to this form component when we render it. Okay, so now instead of doing it using state with this object that we're creating, I'm just going to pass in the initial state that I'm taking. Oh, shoot. Get this out of here. Okay, any questions about that? Whatever the initial state is going to be something that I'm being passed in. It's not going to be something I'm creating right there. Okay. Now all of this other stuff looks like it can pretty much stay in place. However, if I get down here and I look inside my handle submit function, something's going to be a little bit different, right? Depending on whether I'm submitting a post request, in other words, I'm creating a brand new city, or if I'm doing a put request, which means that I'm updating some existing city, right? So in terms of this, what I'm thinking that we can do is we can take in a couple pieces of information. We can take in what kind of request we're making, and then we can also take in what is the endpoint that we want to send this request to, right? So let's come up here to our props and accept those guys in as well. So I'll say method. So that's either, at this point, that's either going to be a post or a put request. And then the other thing that I'm going to pass in will be my endpoint. Or we'll just call it a URL. Keep it simple. Okay? So rather than doing an axios.post down here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say axios. Okay, I've got a question here from Hutan. How does it know what method is? Well, it doesn't. We're going to pass that along in the props here, right? So when we render out this form component, we have to pass a prop to it saying what method do we want this thing to submit through. Okay? So the axios.post and the axios.put that we've been using are actually shorthands for the axios function. Okay? The axios function can take an options argument with some different things. So it can take a method, to be method, and it can take a URL, which is the URL. Okay? But to keep this simple, because these object keys are the exact same as two things that I have access to, which is method and URL, I can get rid of that colon like this. Okay? So what I'm doing is I'm calling Axios, I'm telling it what method I want to use and which URL I want to send this request to, and I'm getting those from my props. So again, ultimately when we render this form component, we're going to need to pass those things along, right? Any questions about that? Good question, Francis. So the reason why I'm doing this is because I'm trying to make this a little bit more flexible in the sense that if we're rendering this component in multiple places, I don't necessarily know which method I'm going to use, right? It's going to depend on what that prop is coming in to the component. Did that answer your question? Okay, excellent. All right, so now that we've got this here, what is this going to return? Your favorite question. Yeah, look at that. They're coming in. Nice. That's what I like to see. Oh, somebody said it's going to return a callback. Good one. I like it. Yeah, so this is going to return a promise. Imagine if it's something else. Yeah, that could happen. You never know. Make sure that you guys stay on your toes. All right, so we know that we're going to get a promise back. So let's just bring this guy up here. Okay. All right, and then we can dump this. Okay, so what we had before was when we get back our response, we're simply going to navigate to that particular city. Now let me ask you guys, what if I wasn't sure what we wanted to do when the form was successfully submitted? What might we be able to do at that point? If I wanted to make this form component even more flexible so that this on line 24 wasn't sort of stuck in one way. Anybody have any ideas? No? All right. Well, in the same way that we've made this flexible by taking in some props, couldn't I also take in a prop like this called success callback? If I wanted it to be dependent on how that form is being rendered, I can make it a little bit more flexible by doing something like that, right? Say, this is what I want to happen when this form is successfully submitted. Now, in our case, we're going to keep it simple, and we'll always do the same thing. We're just going to navigate back to that specific city's detail page. All right, cool. Any questions about this before we actually use it somewhere? No. All right, cool. So let me close app.js. We'll jump into new city here. And what am I going to need here? So I need to bring in my form, right, so that I can use it. So I'll say import form from, and we're going to get that from one level up, whoops, and then into my components, and then grab the form, right? Okay. I'm not going to need Axios anymore because, as you guys can see, I've already imported it here. So we're going to be doing the Axios was already brought into our form component, so we don't need it here inside our new city. Yeah, sure did. Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate you guys looking out for me. All right. Here, now we can get rid of all of this stuff, right? So we're simplifying our lives quite a bit. Okay, and instead of rendering this form, all right, now let's render our form component. And let's remind ourselves which props are we expecting. So if I go up here, I'm expecting some initial state, a method, and a URL. Okay, so the initial state is just going to be an object that has all of those key value pairs, right? So it'll be name will be blank, population will be blank, and then image URL will be blank, okay? I want to say what my method is. So in this case, since I'm creating a brand new city, I'm going to use a post method, right? And then the URL is going to be where do I want to send the request when the form is submitted. So I want that to be sent to localhost 4000 / API / cities, right? Okay, so now as you guys can see, since we're just rendering out this form component, I no longer need this navigate, and I don't need the Axios either. Do I need use state? No, same thing, right? We have no state anymore. The state is being managed by the form component itself. Okay, so let's take a look, see if this thing is still working. So if I go to add a city, okay, it looks like it's working. What city do we want to add? Somebody give me your home city. Glendale? Wait, we already added Glendale and then we deleted it, right? NYC, that's a good one. All right. Burbank. Hey, Burbank's already in there. San Diego, Sherman. Oh, wow, you guys want all kinds of stuff. Never forget Glendale. Yeah, Glendale took a beating on Friday from us. I feel bad. New York City. What's the population of New York City? Anyone know? Is it like a couple million or something? Yeah, a lot, right? New York City population. Whoa, oh. Is that just like the New York metro area, or is that New York? That can't be the city itself, right? Dang it, this stuff is in the way. Okay, New York City. Wow, over 8 million? That's rather large. All right, so New York can be a whole different country. Yeah, no kidding. All right, so we'll say like 8.4 million, right? 8400000. Whoops, too many zeros. Let's go get a picture of New York. Grab this, copy image address. Submit. Uh-oh, why did we get undefined? Bug time. Let's try that one more time. New York City. 8400000. Ooh. Too many zeros. Oh, why are we making a GET request? Something's funky. All right, so we said our method should be post. And inside here, we're taking that method and we're applying it there, right? Let's double check the docs here. Axios docs. I guess I blew it here. Method. Okay. Can you also pass in 0 for population to make the computer consider it as an integer? Or is it recommended that we use a blank string? Yeah, you could put 0 in there. That would be fine. I did put that that field type as a number though, so I think it would prevent me from entering in. Let me just test this out here. So if I tried to put letters in there, it's not even letting me. It will only let me put in numbers anyway. So yeah, I wouldn't be too worried about it. What about the URL that we passed as props? Can we please check that once? Okay, so I know the URL is correct, right? Because if you see, I sent a request. Wait, no, I don't. Why is that being sent to undefined? Oh, that was the other request. Hang on a second. So we did do a post request to this. What did we get back here? Please include population. Did I leave that blank or something? Huh. No, I sure didn't. All right, so let's do a little bit of debugging here. Let's jump into our backend. Server. So let's go into our controllers here. I've got my cities controller, and I'm just going to, where are we? Create. Let's console log that guy. Let's uncomment that. All right, and let's try this again. City 8400. Okay, so we're still getting that error. So let's check and see what our console log is telling us in here. So my server is in this first terminal here. Oh no. Why are we getting an empty object here? Oh, I know what's going on. Can anyone tell me what's wrong here? That was kind of dumb on my part. But it's always good to run into errors too, because you guys will run into errors as well. Promise. Form state, okay, good. Form state. So did we do anything with our form state inside the handle submit? So all we specified here was the method and the URL, but we didn't actually send along any data, right? So let's say data, and then here I'm going to pass in the form state. Okay, so let's try that one more time. Add a city, New York City 8400. Okay. Sweet. Our form is now working. And we've got like a collage on here, so that's pretty exciting. Yeah, that does look pretty nice. Got a Statue of Liberty. Nice. I'm clapping, but you can't hear it. Well, thank you. I'll take a quick bow. All right. Cool. Any questions about this in the new city here? So let me close that there. Oops. Okay, so just to recap what's going on is that here, when we're rendering out the form, we want to pass some props to that form so that it has the initial state, so that it has the method that we're trying to use, and so that it has the URL that we're trying to make the request to. All right, so let's close this city's controller. We should be good there. I'm going to close this one, and let's go into update city. All right, so update city, I was bringing in a couple things, use effect and use state. I'm going to keep those for now, and we'll see why in a minute. I don't need navigate, because again, the navigation is going to be taking place inside the form component. I do need Axios though, and the reason why is because I still need to go and retrieve that individual city data when I first load up the component, right? So this stuff is going to stay. That will be fine. Handle change I no longer need, and handle submit I no longer need, because again, these are going to be part of the, this is being taken care of by our form component now. Okay. So this logic stays the same. So if we don't yet have our city data, I still want to just render out that loading, that loading string right there. Okay. If I get past this, that means that I now do have my city data and I can freely render out the form. Well, if we want to use it, let's make sure to import it. So go import form. I'll see if I can spell it right this time. Components form. Okay. And then I'm going to rip out all of this code down here. And we'll just render out the form. Okay, just a reminder of what we need. We need to pass in the initial state, the method, and the URL. Okay. Where am I going to get the initial state from? Any volunteers on that one? Where? Okay. Yeah, from the props. Well, that's an interesting idea. Do I have, the only prop I have here is ID though. So I can't get it from the ID, right? Any other guesses there? Create another one. Okay. Sure, I could create another one, but what do I want the initial state to be based on? Ah, AYA, nice. The info that you get from the GET request, which at this point I've set to the city, right? So when I called the set city function here, it made sure that city value is what I got back from the API, which means that I can just go ahead and pass in that city there as the initial state, right? Okay. Now the other thing I need to pass in is what is the method of the request. You guys remember what method we're going to use for this? put, very good. Okay, and then our URL is going to be HTTP localhost 4000/API/cities. And then because I want to concatenate this ID on, I'm going to need to turn this into a JavaScript expression, right? So we'll go like this, and then we'll say plus ID. Where did we get the ID from? You guys can all shout it in the chat. Props, yes we did, exactly. So that's right up here on line 6. Perfect. All right, so let's save that. We're good to go. And let's go back and test this out. So if I go back to my cities component here and I want to edit this, so we'll say the population is, whoa. Do I have the right number of zeros? I keep looking at that. Yeah, that's right. So let's say the population changed to like 839, like that. Okay, it has indeed updated for us and done the navigation. So everything's working as expected. Okay, questions on this? How did it update real time? Okay, so let's kind of process the flow of information and make sure that we're understanding what's going on. So when that form was submitted here through the state, when that form was submitted, what we're doing is on a successful submission, this callback right here is going to fire, right? On line 25, we're going to go back to that specific city's data, and kind of hard to see here because of all this stuff in the way. Okay, you guys can see that we're actually going back to that individual city's detail page, right? So now when that navigation happens, that means that we're actually mounting a brand new component. So originally we were on the update city component, so this is where we were. But then when we navigated, we ended up here on the city component, which means that this now mounted, it sort of started from the beginning, right? We set the city to null, then we ran this use effect. It went and retrieved all the new information for the city, and now that's what we're seeing on our detail page. So that was kind of the flow, is that we submitted the form, and then when we determined that that form had been successfully submitted, then we navigated over to the detail page. The detail page itself went and retrieved that city information again. So there was another HTTP request that was made. All right, cool. So let's go through this form a little bit here. Pull up my participants list. Okay. Max, give me the first 3 lines here.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, cool. All right, so the first 3 lines, we're importing React, and then use state from React, which would be the node modules. We're importing navigate from our reach router.
Good. And what is navigate?
That I'm still a little confused about.
Okay. Well, let's
I don't
just
understand
glance down
where
below.
it is, rather.
Yeah, so let's go see where it's used and make sure we understand what it's doing. So I see it there on line 25.
Okay, so it looks like that's part of our promises, or part of a promise.
It's inside of a promise callback, right?
Callback, okay.
But how is it being used though?
For our routes?
No, just navigate specifically. Like, how is that being used?
Well, is it for our routes rather? There was.
Well, it's for us to bring a person to a different route. Yeah, that's correct. But
Okay.
specifically, if I see these parentheses here, what does that tell me?
Oh, the parentheses, sorry. Yeah, function.
Function, boom. All right, cool. I'll come back to your question in a sec, Albert. All right, good. So here, line 3.
And then we're just importing Axios for Axios there.
Exactly, and that's coming from what folder?
That would be the modules again.
Node modules, excellent job. Cool, well done. All right, as far as your question, Albert, so you were just asking what is the difference between navigate and link? So the difference is that if we want to programmatically navigate somebody, in other words, we want to at some point in our code trigger a navigation, you're going to use the navigate function. If you want a user to be able to just click on something as if it were a regular link, that's when you're going to use the link component. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. All right, got it. Let's do these lines that I've highlighted. Giovanni.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
We have a function form,
Good.
and it's going to take the initial state, method, and URL.
Good. And those are inside what object? So it looks like they're inside of an object here. What is that?
What the initial state, method, and URL?
No, I mean, we don't know that, right? Because we're just creating a component. But this object here that's surrounded by these curly braces, what do we typically call that object?
I don't know.
So it's something that every React component gets. Anybody want to chime in on the chat there? Yeah, it's the props object, right? So Giovanni, I could rename this and just go like this, props, but then everywhere where I wanted to use some prop, now I need to say props dot whatever that specific prop is. So by me doing it this way, do you remember what this is called? This is one of those other things that's like, you know, if it isn't a promise, if it isn't a callback, then it's probably
Destructuring?
Structuring, good. Nice. We're destructuring, we're grabbing out those specific things that we're interested in. Good job. All right, so keep going down to here.
And then there's variable form state and set form state.
Okay.
And it's going to equal the use state, which we imported from React. And it's going to take in the initial state.
Right, so whatever initial state prop we pass to this component is what it's going to use as its initial state. And this is another example of that thing that we just talked about. Remember what this is?
That is, I mean, that's the state. I don't know.
When I'm sort of pulling specific desert, when I'm pulling specific things out of an array and giving them names that I want.
Destructuring again?
Destructuring, boom. All right, so we see destructuring both on line 5 and line 6. Good. So what's happening here in this? Lines 8 through 15.
We have a function called handle change, and it takes an event.
Takes an event.
Then we made a variable name and value, and that's going to be equal to event.target.
Okay, what's this right here? An example of?
Is that destructuring?
Destructuring. It's all over the place. Okay. I pulled those two things out of the event.target. So event.target is an object. I know that it's got a name and a value inside of it. Good.
Then we have set form state. Is going to take in all form state.
Okay, yeah, so this is us spreading across this form state. We want to keep everything that's currently in there, right?
Yeah. Then I don't know what's going on with the name and then value. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, that's legit. So the name we're pulling from the input itself. So if we go down here and we look at one of these inputs, see how each one of them has an individual name?
Oh,
So this one's name is name, this one is population, and then down here we've got one that's image URL. So that's essentially telling us which input are we dealing with.
oh, okay.
And the reason why I've put it in square braces here is because if I just put the string name in there, it's going to actually update the name part of the form state every single time, as opposed to population or image URL. By putting it in the square braces here, this variable will be evaluated when the function is run, and it will see which input am I actually trying to update, which depends on the event. So if the event occurred on the population input, then this variable would have a value of population.
Okay.
Do you feel okay with that, Gio?
More comfortable, yeah.
A little bit better? All right.
A little better.
Cool. And then the value was also coming from whatever input that person was typing in. So if they're typing in the population input, then this value that we're getting here should be whatever's in that input at that point in time.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. The difference between having a bracket and hard coding the name. Yeah, this is a pretty important point. So let's pretend like I went like this. Okay. So now what this is being treated as is being treated as a string, which means that every time somebody types in one of these inputs, the value of this will always be name. It will never be evaluated to population or image URL, which means that my form state is going to fall out of sync with what the person is actually typing, right? Because we'd never be able to update population or image URL. We would always be updating the name field. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So let's keep going. We've got our handle submit here. Let me have Lawrence explain that one. 17 to 26.
Hello?
Yeah, maybe turn it up a little bit. I can't hear you as much as I'd like.
Really? Hi. Hi.
Yeah. You got it cranked, or can you turn it up a little more?
How? Hello, it's biggest now.
Yeah, not that I want you to yell at us or anything. I just want to make sure everyone can hear.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Maybe I was too far away. Okay. So 17. So we have the handle submit functions. It passing the event. And first we do we prevent the default thing to don't render the new template. That's 18. And then
Yeah, so actually what would happen is if I don't prevent the default, what's going to happen is the form is going to submit, meaning that we'll make a brand new HTTP request. And if I didn't specify an action attribute in the form, it's going to make an HTTP request to the very same page that we're on. Do you know what kind of HTTP request that would be?
Post? What kind of HTTP? What can it be?
Yeah, what kind of HTTP request would be made if we didn't prevent the default? Ah, I see it down here in the chat. A GET request. Exactly. So by default, a form will have a GET attribute if you didn't supply one. Good. All right, so we're stopping that from happening, right? We're preventing the typical form submission.
Okay.
All right, next.
And then we then we call the actual function,
Very good.
and we destructured it. No.
No.
We pass in the initial value.
So here I'm creating a brand new object, right? That's what these curly braces are.
Mm,
And then
Mhm.
inside that object, what are the key value pairs we're supplying?
because the key and the value is the same, so we just write this way.
Yeah, so in other words, I'm providing a key called method. And right now I already have something in here, up here, that I took in as a prop called method, right?
Mhm.
So the name of this prop is exactly the same as the key. Therefore, I don't need the colon part.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Same thing goes with the URL, right? I'm taking this from the prop that was passed into the component, passing that along to this options object. And then what else?
And the data gonna be the form state.
Good. Excellent. So that's whatever the state of the form is at that point in time, right?
Yes.
Good. All right. That's going to return what?
Promise.
Promise.
And
Good.
so that means like if it goes through the response, and we're gonna navigate to the new URL, please.
Okay. So ultimately, even if we're updating or creating a new one, we're making it so that the functionality is always the same, right? We're just going to go to that city's detail page. That
Okay.
was the plan.
Mm.
Okay. So right now we don't have a dot catch on that, right? That's what we're going to be handling this afternoon, because that's going to deal with validations.
Okay.
All right. And then let's just scroll down here. So for each one of these inputs, we're passing in this handle change function. And the handle change function is going to, when it's invoked, it's going to get an event. The event is going to tell us which input was typed into, and we get that from the event.target.name. Okay, so in this case, it would be name. For this one, it would be population. We also want to pass it a value, which is coming from the form state. Okay, so that way our form state is always in sync with what the user is seeing on his or her screen. Because if we don't supply this value here, well, those two things won't match, and we're going to have some problems. Okay? All the rest of this stuff, I think, is pretty self-explanatory here. We talked about what the handle submit does, so I'm just attaching this to the synthetic event on submit. Okay? All right, any questions before I allow you guys to get to work? We'll take a look at the schedule too. Does this seem, can I have some thumbs? Is there a way to like do that in here? Maybe there is. I guess you could just say up, down, side if you want. I don't care. I'm good with that. How do we connect with you if we need any debugging? Do we need to get in on Zoom again? Okay. Yeah, what you can do if you need some debugging, just go ahead and hit me up on Mattermost. And then what you can, like once I've replied and said, yeah, I can jump on, you can set up a live share with me. Wow, this didn't go over so well today. Yeah, site for me, def gonna have to okay. Yes, I will be putting this on the channel. Can I see your update city again? Okay, YouTube please. Yeah, YouTube's coming, don't worry guys. Side, 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 wow. All right, let's look at update city real quick. Can I push this to GitHub? Man, for you, Albert, anything. All right, yeah, I could probably do that. That's a good idea. Thank you. All right, so let's look at the update city. Special for Albert. Yeah, he's getting some special treatment there. But I'll push it for all you guys too. Now watch, when I'm correcting your exams, I'm going to see a bunch of stuff from the city's project in there. I can almost guarantee it. All right, so somebody wanted to see update. Oh, Aya, okay. Was there anything in particular you wanted to talk about here in the update city, Aya? I don't see the problem there. Okay, no, just wanted to see it. Okay, fair enough. Okay, cool. So let me see if I can shoot. How do I pause the recording? Oh, stop recording. Actually, I'll keep recording for a second just so I can show you guys the live share thing. So this live share is going to be really cool for us. You guys are going to want to install this extension called Live Share. Okay, so click on your extensions tab over on the left-hand side, and then when you, when you click on this, you'll see that this is just an extension pack that you guys can add to VS Code, and it basically allows you to share your project with other people. And not only can they basically go in and check out your code live with you, but they can also run that code as well. So if I were running this project here and I had you guys in a live share, you'd be able to just open this up in the browser just like I am. So this feature is truly amazing. So once you've installed that extension, yeah, it's pretty sweet. You can click on this little icon here in the left-hand sidebar to initialize a live share, and then you click on Start Collaboration Session here. Okay, and it's going to do this stuff down at the bottom. If you're doing it for the first time, it's going to ask you to sign in, but it will copy an invitation link to your clipboard. And then, like, if you were messaging with me in Mattermost, you could just jump in there and paste in the URL, right? And then I can join in that session with you. Okay, so if you guys haven't installed that extension yet, please do so ASAP, because this will become quite useful. Okay, let me stop video now. Stop